Ready? All right. Good morning, gentlemen. Today is Daf Lamed Beis. Because you do one blot. You always do one. You just do one. So today's Lamed Beis. So if there's no Lamed Beis, no Lamed Beis. Yeah. Half.
Follow the rules.
This is the rules. Tomorrow, I believe, is a Moed Katan. So today.
I think the rules of Shabbos you're also supposed to do.
Yeah. All right. So we're Lamed Beis, top line. So we're discussing in terms of where we read from on during the weekday and Shabbos Mincha. So we said basically it's machlokes. In the end, we pass in halacha, which is we do halacha l'maisa. Was that Shabbos Mincha, Monday, Thursday, we have all the same kriya. We read from the beginning of the parsha, and then on Shabbos we start also once again from the beginning of that parsha, and we read the entire parsha. So Tanur Rabbanan, top of Lamed Beis in Mesechus Megillah, Vayseach v'roya golel u'mevarich v'chayzer u'pasech v'kari direi mer. So I read it all together. So what happens? The guy gets called up to Aliyah. Donnie comes up to them. He tells them, okay, you're getting Aliyah 15 minutes earlier. Now it's time for your Aliyah. Yeah. Then you roll open the Sefer Torah to see where they read from. The Roya, and then you see the spot. Golel, you close it. Umavarech, you make the bracha. Asher b'charbanu. Then after you finish the bracha, the chayzer pasech, then you reopen it. The kairei, and then it's read. Divrei meir, Svina Meir. Rabbi Yehuda Meir. No. Paseach, open it up, see where you're going to read from. Muvarech, you make the bracha of Asher B'chabanu, the karei, and then you read. In other words, he holds you don't close it for the bracha. That's the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda. So my time with the Rabbi Meir, let's see, what's the reason called Rabbi Meir? Kedula, like Ula, Damer, Ula, Mipnei Ma'amr, HaKarei B'Torah L'Yisai L'Maturgaman. What's the reason why one who gets called up for the Liyah, he shouldn't go ahead and assist the Maturgaman, the one who's translating it? Why? Because if he goes ahead and helps him and assists him, Targum Kosa B'Torah. So people will say the Targum's written the Torah, and he's just reading from the Targum. So Hachinami, so too in this case, if he reads from the Torah, if he says the bracha, right, the bracha on the Torah while it's open, people, in order for people that say, oh, the brachas are written in the Torah, because we only want people to know that just the Torah, the Torah is written in the Torah, nothing else. Rabbi Yehuda, okay, that's the reason I'm Meir. Rabbi Yehuda, actually worried about that. Targum, let me too. People know, they might confuse it. The Targum, maybe the translation is written in the Torah. However, brachas like limited. However, everyone knows that the brachas are not written in the parchment, in the Sefer Torah, and therefore there is no concern if the Sefer Torah is open, which is many, the Mishnah Berurah paskins, that the Sefer Torah is open, but one should look to the side, look away, not look inside the Torah, look to the side. Many people look to the right. So as you won't have your fulfilled basically both the Yeshitas and Arab Zera that says Arab Zera Masa halacha pasech v'rei mevarach b'karet. Halach is like the second opinion of you open it up, you see where you read from, and then you make the bracha, and then you read the Torah. Once again, why did you say the halacha like Rabbi Yehuda? Why do you have to say the entire halacha? Because some people, have a switch around in terms of what Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yehuda said, and therefore we didn't want to just say halacha like Rabbi Yehuda if some people mistakenly thought the first shita was Rabbi Yehuda. Fine. Amar Rav Zera, Amar Rav Masna, haluchos v'habimos ein behem mishum kedusha. The luchos, what are the luchos? So Rashi's loyadati is his first two words. Right, Mahin. I don't exactly know what they are. However, his shot was he gives a shot that perhaps it could be the cover of books. The cover of books of our Gemara is not the rolled scrolls like they had, but the covering of books. Those ein behem kedusha. There is no kedusha on the covers of books if it gets torn off from the svarim. And also habimos, what are the bimos? Those are sort of the stands that was used for the king when he used to go ahead and read the parsha. So something that he would stand on, that was called the habimos, right? So there is no kedusha in those items. And Amar Rav Shvati Amar Rabbi Yechanan Hagala Sefer Torah Tzarech Shemdeno Al Tvar. One who goes ahead and rolls the Sefer Torah, he should go ahead and roll it by the seam. Very good, thank you. By the seam, that because if they're pulling it or they're rolling it and it tears, it will tear over there and not in the parchment. You can always go ahead and sew it up without causing any damage to the actual parchment. The Amar Sutaya Amar Rabbi Yechanan Shvatia, is that his name? Is that Shvatia? So Amar Rav Shvatia Amar Rabbi Yechanan Hagolo Sefer Torah Goylo Mi Bechutz Vein Goylo Mi B'fnim. One who goes ahead and rolls the Sefer Torah. Now we're not talking about the way we roll it nowadays. right? One or two people, right? On the bima, or if it's one person, he's rolling it side by side with the the handles, the knobs. Rather, we're talking about basically one sort of without the handles, and he has the scroll on it, right? He has this, picture. He's like Megillus, right? So you're holding it, you have two, and one is on top of the other, right? One is on top of the other, and he's rolling it on his lap. So one who goes ahead and rolls it, golem b'chutz. So if he's going ahead and the golem b'fnim, if he's going ahead and trying to get to a place, then he goes in the outer one. So he holds in the outer one. So he has the one closer to by him, and he's holding the outer one, and he's turning it, right? He's turning it towards himself. He's turning it towards himself to get to the place. This way, if he's doing it by the inner one, and if he's just rolling the inner one, then the outer one could fall down on the floor. So this way, if he holds the outer one and he's pulling it towards him, that is the way for him to roll the scroll while it's on his lap. And he's going to go and wants to tighten it. Then he tightens it close towards him. He's not going over the words, which will be like bizayon over the words. Right, but this is right, like as I explained, right. But this is not talking about the easier way of doing it. This is only one person without necessarily, the handles where he can just, go ahead and do it lightly. V'amar Rav Shvatia Amar Rav Yechon Asara Shekara b'Torah. The 10 people are together and they have kriyas and they read from the Torah because there's 10 people. There's a minyan. Hagadol shebehem goylel sefer Torah. The gadol, right, the most chashuv amongst them. I don't think it means physically, right, but there does many understand this means golel is referring to the one who does hagba, right? The one who does hagba, hagadol shebehem, not necessarily the biggest, the strongest one. Rather, it means the most chashuv amongst them does golel sefer Torah. He does the gola, which is called the wrapping, is reference most hold that this is referring to the hagba of the sefer Torah. And Hagolo.
Why are they calling it Hagolo?
Right, right. So that's maybe the process. The one who lifts it. It could be also he lifted up and he rolled it. Right, right. He give you one good. Right. He picks it up and he rolls it. Right. And Hagolo noitel skar kulam. And the one who goes ahead and he wraps it. The one who's doing this hagla. He's the one who goes ahead and gets all the skar. Dam Rabbi Shimon Levi. Asar shagav Torah. If you have 10 people around, they do Chris Torah. Hagolo sevet Torah. Kibel skar kulam. Right, the one who does gailel, the one who lifts it up and rolls it up, right? He is the one who receives the reward of all of them. So the Gemara asks, well, he gets everyone's reward. Right? No, everyone gets reward. They heard Kriyas Torah, and he also gets the most chashuv reward of not only hearing it but also wrapping it up. V'amar Rav Satya Amar Rabbi Yechanan Minayla Mishtamshim Bebas Kol Shenem. How do we know that one is? I guess there's something more statements of Rav Satya in the name of Rabbi Yechon. So where do we know Mishtamshim Bebas Kol? One hears a baskol that you listen to the baskol. Shinar as the book says. Right, the ears heard something from behind you. Right, is referring to a baskol, some sort of heavenly voice comes down. Then you can listen to the heavenly voice. Right, and Lamar Avahani Mila the Shema called Gavra B'Masa called Isa B'Davra, and this we're only talking about within this voice that he hears is the voice of a man in the city, in a town. The call Isa and the sound of a woman B'Davra in the field, and also even when you hear these voices, V'hu Damar Hin and V'hu Damar Lav Lav. Only the Baskal says yes or no. Or you don't know we should do something, and you hear a yes. Then that is a heavenly voice. But if you hear some other type of voice, which is not yes, no, then perhaps it could be some sort of shadim or something, then one does not necessarily listen to that baskol. One who goes in and reads without ni'ima, right? Rashi teaches ni'ima as could go into ame hamikros, right? It's like the trup, right? One who goes reads without the trup. He's the Torah of the Shaina below Zimra, or he learns it without Zimra, right? Without the song, right? They used to go ahead and memorize different, Mishnayos in this way, Torah Shabbat Peh, through song. One who doesn't learn a song, Allah B'Kasav Aymer, about him, the pasuk says, the Gamani Nasati lahem chukim loy toivim v'chulei, right? And I have given you, the pasuk says, lo toivim mishpatim lo yichyu bahem. I'm just reading the end of the pasuk, right? I gave you these laws, right? And they won't be good, and you won't live by them. So if you don't go ahead and read Torah with Ne'ima and learn with Zimra. So the Gemara doesn't understand. Right? What? Because the person, he doesn't have a good voice, right? He can't say, he has a tone deaf, he doesn't have a pleasant voice, right? That he can't sing, right? His learning. So we're going to say that the Mishpatim, he's not going to live by, right? Mishpatim Yichubam Krasabeh. You're going to read about him. That Ella Kadam Misharshia. Don't have like Misharshia. Who says Shnei Tamid Chachamim Hayoshim Yerachas. You have two Tamid Chachamim who live in the same city. They Neichen Zeh and Bahalacha, and they don't deal with one another. Halacha, they don't talk. They don't grow together in halacha. Right? They each one is independent of one another. Alei Makasav about them. It says that's such a scenario, right? They should be learning together. They should be talking and learning together and going things over together. If they don't, for that the pasuk says that I gave them chukim that are not good and mishpatim and laws that they will not live by. And Amar Rabbi Parnech Amar Rabbi Yechanan Kol Eiches Sefer Torah Arum Nikvar Arum. One who goes ahead and holds the Sefer Torah Arum. Right, he holds it arum without it's covering that he is arum, but rather the Sefer Torah is arum. He touches it, the Sefer Torah itself goes arum. Nikva arum. He will be buried arum, right, in an undignified manner, right, without any clothes, without any what's it called, without any tachrichim upon him. So where it says arum sogadaiza, what mamish? This is his punishment. Elaima nikva arum b'lei mitzvahs. Rather, he's naked without mitzvahs. So below mitzvahs, but he loses all his mitzvahs because he touched the Torah, right? It didn't have its cover and all that. Ella Amar Abaye Nikva Aram below Oisa mitzvah. Rather, he's buried right with this out of mitzvah. In other words, he doesn't have the mitzvah of Kriyas Torah. He doesn't have the mitzvah of learning from the Torah because that he lost out by touching it Arum, by touching by making direct contact. And Amar Rabbi Yanai Berei Rabbi Yanai Saba Mishmei Rabbi Yanai Rabba Mutav. So says Rabbi Yanai, the son of Rabbi Yanai. Right, who was the grandfather, right, who was over in the name of Rabbi Yanai Rabba, right? So I guess they many of them named after generations after one or the other. Mutav Tigala Hamitbachlas Daigala Sefer Torah. It's better. I think the Yekas might have this minute. I don't know what they do, but it's better to go ahead and take a Sefer Torah, and when you have the Sefer Torah, then wrap around it, as opposed to sort of have the wrapping there and then sort of place the Torah inside the wrapping. So it's better. The dimple, right. So it's better to have, I guess, the Sefer Torah and wrap it around, right? Wrap it around than to do the other way. We'll stop here at the two dots of when we do the Siyum, which Avrami is now. Yes. Yigal right now, he's driving, looking for locations for the Siyum. So.